I'm really excited to bring up our next presenter, Ariana Escobar. She's on our design team at CARTO, and she's going to tell us a little bit about designing location-intelligent applications with an eye for user experience.
Hello, can you hear me? Ready? Okay. Well, thank you, and welcome again to CARTO Locations. Thank you for being here today. So, as Javi said before in his keynote, design has always played a major role in CARTO. Besides having an amazing design team, if I can say so myself, we have also designers in other teams, like in customer success, in our product management teams. And even more important than that, we have a bunch of people that are really aware of the power of the power and the value that the design brings to the table. So we try to share that knowledge and that passion with our clients, with our partners, with our users. And so that's part of why I'm here today, talking to you a bit about this. So what I'm hoping is that after this talk, you will be able to get a glimpse into the design workflow that we use when we design location intelligence solutions, what we use to design Builder, and what we recommend, again, to our clients and partners for their own. So before we move any forward, where are we? Yeah. Here. Before we move any forward, I want to clearly state what I mean when I talk about designing better. So what is good design anyway? So far from being a subjective matter, good design has a clear purpose, has a clear definition of who is it designed for, meets business needs, users are able to accomplish their tasks, it creates happy users, and has a clear success criteria. So that's exactly what we want to get. It's not about creating beautiful applications. There's actually a quote that I read the other day, which resonates a lot with what I want to try to say today. It's from Otto Wagner, if I remember correctly, and he said something like, something cannot be beautiful if it's unpractical, so let's try to make things practical, right? And then they will become beautiful from it. So where do we even start? Should we try to start to define our user interface, start creating our maps, start wireframing, prototyping? No. The first thing that we need to do is to define the basics, and these basics will define the rest of the application. So the first one is to come up with a list of questions, or more than the questions, the answers that you seek from the application that you're building. And these questions will be the one that will help you to take all the following decisions until you finish the project. Everything needs to be tailored to that question and for that answer that you're seeking, and nothing can harm that initial, that basic that you first defined. So one of the things that we've seen in CARTO, and we've seen it many times, is that people usually try to accomplish too many stuff at the same time with just one single app, and that's rarely a good idea. So we always recommend to take the pressure off when building your first app or even any app, and try to keep it simple. And if you have like a really complex application, then at least try to break it into multiple apps, into multiple dashboards, or at least implement it all in phases. The following one is to understand your users. You can build a beautiful map, but if your users don't understand it or don't know how to interact with it, it becomes worthless, honestly. So the second thing that you need to do is understand them. Who's going to use your product? What is their understanding of the matter? What is their motivation to use your product? When are they going to use it? In which device are they going to use it? What will success look like for them? So after you have your questions and after you have defined your product's users. Then the last one is to determine the ideal output. So this is an important aspect to consider because not every application needs to be an interactive application or even a full-blown location intelligence application at all. And I know this is a bit contradictory to what we're trying to do here, which is building location intelligence applications, but it is a fact. Not all the solutions need to be interactive. Sometimes the best way to share, to represent your information will be through a static map or even just a report, and that's something to consider. So again, think about your users. When are they going to use this solution in order to define what will be that ideal output? So it's then and only then that you will be ready to start thinking about what will be the most effective way to visualize, interact with, and answer your specific questions. So let's get a bit into specifics here. Yes, these are buzzwords that I'm sure you've seen many times now, but just to set the ground rules. UI, that stands for user interface, and UX, that stands for user experience, are just a set of guidelines to design a product. And they're not the same. They're separated and they're focused by thinking about the interface and the interaction. So the interface is basically a tool. And for detail mapping, that tool is what allows our users to interact with our maps and with the underlying geographic information below them. But the interaction is broader than the interface in the sense that it describes the two-way question-answer or request-result dialogue between a human user and a digital tool through a computing device. And I really like this sentence. Says, humans use interfaces, but they experience interactions. And it is the experience that determines the success of an interactive product. I really like it because it clearly states how intertwined and important both concepts are. So the thing with user experiences is that at normal speed, these interactions can happen in a matter of seconds. And to be able to understand each part of those experiences and to be able to pinpoint problems and know how to fix them, I mean, it becomes a tricky exercise because it happens so fast. So what we do in design is to use frameworks that help us decompose a single interaction into multiple observable stages to work on them. So one of those frameworks is one that's called the stages of interaction that was defined by Don Norman in 1988. And again, what it does is a decomposure of a single experience into 7 observable stages. So let's go through an example to see what each of these steps mean. So the first one is to form the goal. These are the high-level tasks that you want your users, that any user will want with a tool. It could be something that, like analysis or synthesis or exploration. So in this case, our user has the goal of seeing Japan. So let's say exploration. The second part is forming the intention. These are the low-level tasks. Wow, more people coming in. Come on. These are low-level tasks, and these are the actual objectives that the users will take to complete the goal. So this could mean something like identifying map features, comparison of 2 map features, ranking of a set of map features, so map features. In this case, the user will want to find one that will help them go see Japan. The third one is specifying an action. This is what the tool will want. Oh my God, so many people. The pressure is on. OK. So for the new people here, we're talking about user experience and how to decompose an interaction into observable stages to pinpoint problems on them. So we've gone through forming the goal, forming the intention. We're talking now about specifying an action. So a tool needs to have strong affordances for our users to understand how to interact with it. So in this case, our tool must be giving a strong affordance to the user about a search box, and they are deciding to use it to go look for Japan. The fourth one is executing an action. And this is just what it says. The user will go and perform the action to complete the goal. This will be done through touchscreens devices, through a keyboard, through a mouse, through voice recognition, whatever you have implemented in your tool. The following one is to perceive the system state. So if the result was successful in the previous one, the map should have changed. There should be a new state. And the user should be able to perceive that new state after the interaction that they perform on it. Then the user must make sense of that new map state to see if the intention was met with the result that they received. And this is when the concept of feedback plays a strong role in order to help the users understand what they did and how it affected the tool. And lastly, we have the evaluation of the outcome. And this is basically comparing if the expectations of your interaction were met with the final result. And this is what will allow for a successful user experience to happen. So as you can see here, just a single experience of looking for Japan, we can decompose it. And now we are going to be able to see where there might be issues there. So for example, let's say that there's an issue in the first one, informing the goal. Maybe the user doesn't know that our application supports the ability to look for a country, or even it might not support it. So first, what we'll recommend is to perform a user's needs assessment to see what they will expect from our product. And in case we already have it, to work on our product learning curve to help our users understand what's possible to do there. Another example will be, for example, in the perceiving the system state step, the user could have done an interaction but cannot understand what happened after it. So a way to solve that is to try to improve the visual feedback, as I was saying before. Or another solution could be to provide a summary information to be able to see the before and after the interaction. OK, now, user interface. So that's the formal definition of it, the iterative set of decisions leading to a successful implementation of an interactive tool. But we mostly think about interfaces as buttons, screens, text, images. And I will ask from all you to refrain from thinking about user interface that way, and instead start thinking about tasks. So your users will want to perform tasks with your tool, and these tasks have to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And the interface will just be like the elements that will help them perform that task. But if you start thinking about it as tasks instead of just elements, it will naturally come to you better ways to design them, better ways to understand what's not happening correctly, and it will help your users at the end much more than just thinking about buttons. So having everything that I already said in mind, the first question to ask is if you need interaction at all. So usually there are two main reasons. The first one is to explore complex data or to tell a story. And as a general rule, with exploration, you can allow for broader interaction, while if you want to tell a story, you might want to constrain their interaction. Of course, there are, that's not always the case, but this is like the general rule. And then digital maps stand rarely alone, and they're mostly always surrounded by an interface. And this interface, as I was saying before, is what allows the user to interact with the map and to allow them to access that geographic information that they carry. So, but one other thing that I want to mention here is that not every interactive map requires the same UI design. There are, of course, a lot of common elements, but they don't have to be the same or look the same or even behave the same, because it will always depend, again, on your question, on your users, and your ideal output. So for every stage of the design process, but most particularly for this one, the concept of information design is extremely important. You have to make sure that every decision that you're taking, that every element that you add, or that each complexity plays a role in the search of your answers, and that they're backing up your goal, not harming it. So we need to build applications that are easy to understand, use, and interpret, that will help our users with their goals in an efficient and elegant way. And users need to understand that information clearly and fast, so they can move on with their days without requiring too much cognitive load. And thus, the other side of that coin is that we have to be very careful, because we might fall into the trap of adding features just for the sake of adding features. And that might be from the idea that will make our product feel better or more complete. But more times than we would expect or that we would want, we see clients and burners making the mistake of adding too much stuff in. As I was saying before, we want our products to do so much, but that ends up being that ends up harming our initial goal. So again, keep it simple, keep it sweet, keep it elegant, and if you need to solve many different questions, just make more maps. I mean, we can make all the maps you want. And yeah, that was it. So when starting to think about the interface, there are like two ground things to cover. The first one is to define your interface scope, which is all the different elements that you will want to implement in your product. And the last one is the interface freedom, which is how precise those elements must be. So both of those things is what define your interface complexity. So there must be a nice balance between both things. And much like managing information complexity in cartographic design, managing interface complexity is essential for a good design. And that balance that I was saying before must come from user input and evaluation. So keep talking to your users even after designing your app, refine it, iterate over it, and ask for feedback. Don't think that once you just finalize a design, it's done. That's never the case. It can always be better. And the only way that it will become better for your user is to ask them. Nothing new here. So UI design is a highly creative process, and the creation of a coherent and unique visual brand relies on a good refinement of the global design decisions. So let's go over some of the most important ones. The first one is layout. This is the visual arrangement of user interface elements around a web map. Of course, a layout should adjust automatically to the different devices or display sizes that there is intended to be used on. And one of the most common ones for creating location intelligence apps is the partial map, that is the one highlighted there, because it allows for a greater level of detail and control, but while also enabling space for other elements besides the map itself. Then we have navigation. So the appropriate type of navigation for any application will depend on your questions, on your basics. Navigation components like menus or sidebars or drop-downs will help you to cover all the levels of complexity and interactions that you want to offer your users. And the goal here is to do it step by step. So there are two ground rules for navigation. The first one is that your users must always know where they are, or the current place in which they are in your application. This is known as orientation. And the second one is that the navigation should remain consistent. So don't move your menus around. Always use the same logic while moving through screens. And the last part that I wanted to mention here is that for truly complex applications, a well-designed navigation is like the most important part. And that's when the universal design principle of progressive disclosure comes into play. So complex data and complex interaction can become really frustrating to use. We've seen so many products with so many features and stuff going on around it that is overwhelming to just see, to just start to play with them. And we need to fight that. We need to look for our user satisfaction, to reduce their frustration, and the progressive disclosure principle can really help in this case. So what the principle says is that information presented to the user when they're not ready to process it is effectively noise. So to avoid or reduce that noise, we implement this strategy that what it says is that we only should show information that is required or necessary for any given time. In that sense, we will keep our display screen uncluttered, we will avoid frustration, and it will help keep our users oriented in where they are. And yeah, that was all that I had to say there. Then we have affordances and visual feedback. These are signals. Affordances are signals about how to interact with the tool, while feedbacks are signals about what happened as a result of the interaction. So objects and environments and everything that is designed should have strong affordances to indicate our users how to interact with them, and strong negative affordances on how to not interact with them. On the other hand, the visual feedback is an essential part of software design, and is used to engage, to explain, to improve user satisfaction, and is what can change a frustrating experience into a pleasant one. Then we have typefaces. So typefaces have personalities. It's something that we know already, and that can contribute to the historical message of a map. It is important to understand the personalities of these typefaces, so we can create an application that is following the same tone and the same message. And our primary focus when picking up a typeface is, of course, legibility. And it needs to be, we need to be able to read it in all its context and through all the devices that we're intending to use the application on. And this is the most important part of it. And also, I wanted to say that generally, when creating a location intelligence app, you should only use one typeface. It will be rare the need to use more than one. So again, keep it simple. Icons. Icons are a powerful and an efficient way of compressing information. It's one of its most valuable benefits is the ability to effectively replace text. So when we have truly complex applications that might be overcrowded with features, icons can help us in reducing that amount of elements when they're easily recognizable. But you have to be careful because what we might understand from an icon, it might not be the same to other cultures. So again, go back to your users when you are taking all these different decisions. Then we have color. So many people think about color when a designer picks colors for a tool, that it's mainly based on our taste or in our sense of beauty. But actually, picking up color is one of the most important decisions that you will have to take when defining your global design decisions. And why I'm saying this? There's a research done by CCI Color that says that people make a subconscious judgment, about people and tools and environments in the first 19 seconds of their initial viewing. And that between 62% and 90% of that initial judgment is based on color alone. 90% of the initial judgment. So that you can see why it's important to take extremely good care of the colors that you're choosing for your tool. So make sure that these colors work in favor of your information, convey the right tone and message for your brand or for your tool. And again, go back to your audience, because different culture attach different meanings to colors as well. And the last one is accessibility. which says that an application should be usable to people with diverse abilities, without a special adaptation or modification. So historically, accessibility in design has been about accommodating people with disabilities, but as we've become more we've increased our awareness on accessibility design. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. It has become increasingly clear that these so-called accommodations will work for every user, not just people with disabilities. So take a good care of your accessibilities in your tools. Spend some time learning about this. It's so important. For example, the one I have there is about colors. This is actually something that I'm very proud of our CARTO colors, but there are some of them that if you pass it through an accessibility test, they don't work well. So this is one of those schemes. And for a huge portion of the population, they won't be able to see the different tones there on the left. They will be able to see them like the lower right one, and they mostly look the same. So we don't want that. We're screwing up our tool. So take good care of your product and its accessibility guidelines. So these are just some of them. There are many more, like copywriting, like the default settings of your apps, animations. But those are like the most basic ones, I say. So once you have taken those decisions and you have your basics in mind, now you are going to be able to start working on your local design decisions, which are all your interface elements. And you need to take into consideration, again, the web map elements should have a consistent look across the base map, data, and user interface layers of the map, and fit with the overall page or app design. So I'm going to stop showing you text, and I'll start showing you images. So let's see everything that I've been talking about with the help of one of our solutions, Vodafone Analytics, and see how they implemented all these different decisions here. So the first thing that we see is that this is a partial map. We see that there's a huge part of the application that shows the base map, but there's also some space enabled for the other elements on it. Then we can see that there is a clear color contrast between what's the base map on a dark base map and what's the interface that we can interact with that are on a lighter color, white in this case. Then we can see as well that we're using red as an accent color, so that strengthens the idea of what we can interact with. It's not just the white, it's also the red on top of it. We can see that here we're just using one typography, which is a sans serif, which is also the same type class that is used on the base map. So they work together nicely. We have a map metadata, of course, always add that. Then we have our menus. Our menus are following the principle of progressive disclosure. You will see later that there's an image of them open, and they're still showing a lot of information. But right now, they're just there, waiting to be interacted with. They're not adding any clutter to the interface. They are pretty subtle. And that's what I'm going for with the usage of progressive disclosure. Just show what's necessary at any given time, and start showing more stuff as you move forward. Again, interactive controls. One thing about interactive controls is that they should provide feedback about when they are active. Sorry. And for truly complex applications, you should have some kind of reset button to go back to the default settings. So that's what I was saying. Now that you have interacted with the menus, you can see that now we're showing a bunch more stuff in. So Here you see more interactive controls. You see legends that, again, could also be interactive. And you see supplemental graphs, or how we call them in Builder, widgets, to show a different kind of representation of your data besides the map itself. And lastly, we have supplemental information that it can take the form of tooltips or sidebars, or there could be text, links, images. And as a general rule, use pop-up when there's not much information to show, and panels when there's a lot. So as with cartographic design, the visual look and feel of an application is more than just icing on the cake. And it sets the tone for the entire user experience. We now know that it's not just about having valuable data or all the analysis that we perform on that data to extract information from them, but how we represent that information beyond setting the tone of the experience. It improves the usability, improves user satisfaction, and it's what truly enables an insightful product. Because just having information and being able to display it is not enough. You need to display it the proper way. So allow me to do a shameless plug here and ask you all to go to Mamata Sakela's talk later on today. She will be talking more about this, and it will be amazing, so don't miss it. And after that, I want to also remember what Javi was saying on his keynote. This is so important for us, all these design principles, and we've taken so much care of them in Builder and all the other solutions that we have built in the past or right now, that we wanted to share that information with all of you. And so that's why we started thinking about creating this library, this design library, front-end library, whatever you want to call it, to help you with that. This is a very flexible library. We're still trying to work on different ways. Right now we have it on React, but we want to offer more technologies there as well. But it's a truly flexible library that will help you in your applications. You will be able to change everything you want: colors, typographies, icons, whatever. But it's a nice way to start creating solutions from a good starting point. Sorry. So, I mean, you already saw the video, so I don't know if I. Okay, so Airship reduces the development and design time by providing a customizable library of components with minimal coding. The idea here is to empower designers and developers and app developers to quickly create solutions with great design principles on them. And we're still, as I was saying, working on them. It's available. You can create apps with it already. I'm actually going to show you one right now. But we're still trying to make it better. As I said, this is a never-ending game. So let's take a closer look. I think I don't have too much time, so I'm going to go over. I'm not going to get into the specifics of how we designed it. And instead, I'm going to show you the application. And I just wanted to say before this that Airship has been created with our platform in mind. Our idea is for it to be easily used with not just CARTO.js, but also with CARTO.bl. And so it will be tightly connected. You can, of course, use it on your own, but the idea is for all of these elements to play nicely together. So can we change it to the application so I can show it to them? Is it on? OK. So what you're seeing here is the US crop loss from last year and the crop loss from different types of causes like drought or heat or hurricanes. So this map is created with CARTO BL. So that means that the performance, so we can use some of the capabilities that the vector offers here. And it's using Airship, as you can see on the right, to create the different components. So let's see if I can, yeah. Can you see this? The animation? OK, so this is mostly BL doing its thing of showing the different crop types being affected throughout the year. And what we can also do is, for example, let's go here. And start looking at this. So what is this doing is Airship, throughout this component, is interacting with the data and, sorry, I don't know if this is working too properly. Interacting with the data to show us different stories. So we can go and see what's been the major loss in Texas, or what's the most affected crop type, and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so the idea here, this is not loading really well. The idea is to show you how both things work nicely together, and that it's already a working library. And I hope you will find the time to play with it now. So I don't want to take more of your time. I want you to just repeat that. Think of your users, think about your ideal output, have your questions in mind always when taking decisions. Use Airship, and to make the experience of going to see Japan a satisfactory one. And thank you.